Legerdemain. The skillful use of one's hand while performing a trick. Basically, a fancy way to say magic. References to magic can be traced as far back as 2700 BC to a magician named Degedai in ancient Egypt. Let's pause for a second and focus on the important part of his name. Degedai had a mention in the 4th chapter of a story told in the Westcar Papyrus, an ancient Egypt text. There is very little evidence outside of this mention that Degedai even existed and was probably just a fictional character. Nevertheless, he has been credited as a commoner of extraordinary age, endowed with magical powers and talented in making prophecies. He had also been credited by some as the first person to conjure the cup and ball trick. Perhaps now is a good time to make a clear distinction in terms of magic and magic. Magic in terms of supernatural has never been scientifically proven to be real, and as far as I know would break the laws of modern physics. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible for those true believers out there busy conjuring up a poop my pants spell for even suggesting that, and physics has been wrong in the past. However, for the purposes of this video, we are going to focus on illusions and sleight of hand magic only. Sorry, Potter fans. Where were we? Cup and ball tricks have been a staple of magic as far back as we can go. Harry Houdini, perhaps one of the most famous magicians of modern times, has expressed the opinion that no one could be considered an accomplished magician until they had mastered the cup and balls. We all have probably seen a bunch of variations of this trick before. The magician has 3 balls and 3 cups, and they seem to be able to make the balls vanish and reappear among the cups. There was a group of magicians in ancient Rome called Acetabulari who specialized in this trick around 50 to 300 AD using stones and small vinegar cups. Vinegar being a lot more popular back then as a cupped item as opposed to the modern bottle or packet, I guess. Throughout the Dark Ages, when one could be burned at the stake for even the slightest hint of performing witchcraft, it's probably not too surprising sleight of hand and illusions weren't very popular. Although people were still being executed as witches until the late 18th century, Steve Burton, who owned a publishing company in 1634, felt it was safe enough to publish Hocus Pocus Jr., The Anatomy of Legerdemain. The author or authors were anonymous, and the 52-page illustrated book was the first to be devoted entirely to the subject of magic from the viewpoint of the performing magician. About 100 years before Harry Houdini hit the scene, Eugene Robert Houdin was taking Parisians by storm with his fantastical magic show. He is referred to as the father of modern magic, and prior to him, illusions and sleight of hand was mostly entertainment consumed by commoners and less sophisticated type folk. Houdin brought magic to the theaters and started the whole tuxedo with tails magician look. He wowed audiences with flashy production and such during his illusions, but didn't start at the top of his game, though. His first show had gone so badly he almost quit on the spot. He suffered from terrible stage fright and had rehearsed so much, his first performance was found to be quite mechanical and monotone at times. It took years for him to refine his craft, and at one point he had to sell 3 of his houses his mother had left him to keep his theater open. Houdin's name was the inspiration to Enrich Weiss, who had actually started his performing career as a trapeze artist at 9 years old. In his late teens, Weiss decided to take a shot at magic and started calling himself Harry Houdini. Houdini was probably most famous for being an escape artist, although he did make an elephant vanish January 17th, 1918. His daring escapes had audiences on the edges of their seats around the turn of the 20th century, and he had gotten the nickname Harry Handcuff Houdini on a tour of Europe early in his career after challenging local law enforcement to try to keep him locked up. Soon his repertoire extended to chains, ropes slung from skyscrapers, straitjackets underwater, and having to escape from and holding his breath inside a sealed milk can with water in it. Houdini was president of the Society of American Magicians at one point, the oldest magic society in the world, and was keen to uphold professional standards and expose fraudulent artists. He was also known to sue anyone who tried to copy any of his tricks, so don't fuck with him. Years and years of people getting sawed in half and or vanishing, leaving audiences wondering how did the magicians do that, started to get boring eventually. A magician named Val Valentino thought it might be a bunch of fun to tell people some of magic's greatest secrets and became the masked magician on the Fox network. More proof Fox can always sink another step lower. Valentino performed for 2 years from 97 to 99 in 4 Fox network specials called Breaking the Magician's Code, Magic's Biggest Secrets Finally Revealed, revealing himself as the man behind the mask at the end of the final episode. Val claimed the show only revealed old magic tricks and felt it would help encourage young magicians to take up the art if they knew a few of the secrets behind all the hocus pocus. I'm sure he didn't mind the fame and the paycheck also. Several magicians tried to sue Val and Fox, claiming from tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars lost between licensing deals for tricks no longer performed and expensive apparatus now rendered useless. Val wasn't the only one criticized for letting the rabbit out of the hat, though. Penn and Teller have been performing together since the 70s and have one of the longest running shows in Vegas. The pair are also known for revealing the secrets of their tricks, often satirically. However, usually the tricks they reveal are their own and have been created specifically for this purpose. In 2011, P&T launched a show called Fool Us, a magic competition show where lesser-known magicians performed a trick in an attempt to fool the veteran magicians. If Penn and Teller could not figure out how the trick was done, the magician who performed it win a Fool Us trophy and a 5-star trip to Las Vegas to perform the opening act in Penn and Teller's show at the Rio Hotel and Casino. When the plug was getting pulled on all the big classic tricks in the late 90s, a young magician had a different idea. David Blaine wanted to bring magic back to where it used to be 100 years ago, before Houdin's theatrical flash and sparkle. His show Street Magic aired on ABC in May 1997 and focused much on people's reaction to his tricks as much as the tricks themselves. Blaine had been performing magic since he was only 4 years old and has a super long list of tricks and stunts he has performed under his belt. Blaine idolized Houdini, and many of his later tricks were closer to the escape artist and stunt genre rather than sleight of hand that made him famous on the Street Magic show. At one point, he stood on a tall pillar for almost 40 hours in a row before jumping off onto a bunch of boxes that were supposed to break his fall. He got a concussion from the landing and mentioned in an interview near the end of the stunt he was hallucinating so badly that the buildings around him started to turn into animals. There is no shortage of magicians around, and I could mention so many more like Chris Angel or David Copperfield, but I'm probably going to call it at that in terms of name dropping, just to focus on magic itself for a momo. Magic can be fun to watch. As people, we love to be fooled and challenged with what is seemingly impossible and try to figure it out. We're wired to be problem solvers. But are we the only ones? Most animals aren't able to comprehend object permanence. You couldn't perform the cup and ball trick to a dog because once you put the ball under the cup, the dog doesn't realize the ball still exists. Out of sight, out of mind, I guess. A few years ago, people were posting videos of themselves holding up a blanket between them and their dog when standing in a doorway or a hallway or something. They would let the blanket fall to the ground and quickly run into another room or out of the dog's sight. From the dog's point of view, the person vanished. Some dogs seem to react appropriately, but it's unlikely the dog has the mental capacity to think their owner vanished into thin air. That would require an understanding of what vanishing into thin air is. Even if the dog doesn't understand what's going on, they had fun, and so did their human companion. There are also several examples of monkeys and other primates having very human-like reactions to simple card tricks and sleight of hand. Some primates are thought to have object permanence, so might have the mental capacity to understand magic. They should be able to draw the conclusion that something unexpected happened, or perhaps they have no idea what happened. But when they make that face or expression, it makes the human on the other side of the glass laugh and smile, and they get more attention. So it was reinforced again and again and again. Most scientists say not to read too much into animal reactions that seem human. It's hard to really know what's going on upstairs in the brain of a member of the animal kingdom. Still, if I had to go on record, I would say our little primate buddies are a lot more clever than we give them credit for, and might have understood in some capacity. We all probably went through a magic phase at some point in our lives. I remember trying to fool my parents with lame card tricks and trying to steal center stage at family gatherings with sleight of hand I learned off the TV in the late 80s and early 90s. Magic is fun to watch, but can also be big business. David Copperfield is worth an estimated $875 million. We love for people to try to fool us and will obviously pay big bucks for the experience. With the introduction of the internet, there aren't a lot of places around to hide secrets anymore, but yet magic is still thriving. There must be an art to it that is a bigger secret than the trick itself, a way to fool audiences into believing what they are seeing isn't just an adult in a rented tux at a rundown old theater, that what they are seeing is in fact magic.
It's magic, you know.
Skillful use of one's hand when basically a fancy way to say magic. Legerdemain. Skillful use of one's hand while performing a basically a fancy way to say legerdemain. Ah, shit. Oh no. God damn it, hold on.